Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to What is America to You? I'm your host, Derek Dempsey. Okay, before we start the show and introduce you to our next guest, don't forget to subscribe to What is America to You and also hit the like button. The like button's very important, Jessica, right?
That's right.
The unlike button will mean that we'll get your address and hunt you down and give out to you profusely at your front door. Okay, so also keep up the comments in the comment section. Some great comments in all the videos so far. So our next guest, his involvement in the Buffalo music scene has earned him the 2014 President's Award from the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. He's also played guitar on Ian Gillan's album, Ian Gillan of Deep Purple. He's met and interviewed some of the world's greatest stars, some of them on the phone, some of them in person, including David Bowie. David Bowie!
Yeah!
Todd Rundgren, another genius, Rod Stewart, Carlos Santana, and Neil Peart of Rush. In 2008, our next guest was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. Pulitzer. You say potato, I say potato, I don't know. For his music criticism at the Buffalo News. He covers 100 concerts a year, obviously prior to this latest crap we've been having. That's more concerts than I've been to in my whole life, I'm not kidding. And this part that I love, he has drawn the ire of Britney Spears, Sananda Maitreya and Elton John. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you our next guest is music critic at the Buffalo News. Welcome to What is America to You, Jeff Miers. How you doing?
Hello, Derek. Thank you for having me. How are you, man?
Doing good. I hope that introduction was more or less factual.
It was more factual.
I like that. I like that kind of twist of grammar. It was more factual. All right. Okay, so well, I do also want to say our mutual friend Eric Starr, thank him for bringing us together on this.
Top man, one of my favorite people in the world and oldest and dearest friends. And what a musician.
Oh, genius. I always say Eric is a genius, but he doesn't walk around with a powdered wig or a quill, you know, and he works by...
give it time. Give it time.
I mean, like, yeah, look, we could talk about Eric. We're going to get Eric on here to talk about so much great stuff. But anyway, while we're here, every interview is very different. So I kind of compiled a few questions that I want to know from you. And the first one is, as a journalist, and we'll get to the... I'm fascinated that Dylan used your quote, which we'll get to in a little while, at all of his gigs for about 15 years. But what I'm always amazed with stars, big stars like the ones you mentioned in the introduction, they either trust the journalist or they don't. Do you have any insight on why they trust or don't trust the journalist?
Well, trust obviously is based on respect, right? So you need to establish, a vibe of respect from the outset. The way to do that, in my experience, is to show without, beating the subject over the head with it, that you are versed in their work, that you know it, that that you're not talking to, say, David Bowie, for example, and talking about the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust when he just put out a new album.
Yes.
You want to be versed in what they're doing. Know your stuff. In my experience, I mean, being a musician has helped me in that, because I'm able to talk to them on a musical level that maybe some other critics don't have if they don't really know how to make music themselves and have never been on that side of it. So that's helped me. But I do, like all relationships, is this a poignant theme for right now? Yes. We should meet on common ground forged from respect.
Yeah.
That helps.
And it's funny you mentioned the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. In many interviews you hear Bowie, like, I've seen him rip up people's questions when they go that route. Or on the Jonathan Ross show, he's like, these questions, why did you kill Ziggy? It's like, I think if I had ever been lucky enough to meet Bowie, I think I probably would have been more interested in asking him about his interest in jazz.
Yeah, fascinating, because we see that with Black Star, right?
Yes.
He was haunting small jazz clubs in New York to hear the hottest young players, which ended up being the Donnie McCaslin Quartet, who became the band on Black Star.
Incredible.
Right? Till the very, very end, he was digging and looking and not like in any way. It's like it'd be such an insult to be like, the album you made in 1973. Yeah. I mean, sure, if they bring it up, fair game.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, yeah. Asking him about his interest in jazz, that's a great way to, as an example, establish an attitude of trust with a subject, and they're not going to be like, oh, they're going to ask me the same dumb questions and then probably try to twist them into some clickbaity headline.
Yeah. The worst thing. So it's honesty. Ultimately, it's honesty and knowing your stuff, and a click. And they kind of know it because they've dealt with, like I always say, when someone like you or I or Jessica meet someone like David Bowie, we've met one of him. He's met hundreds and thousands of us. With all respect to how wonderful and amazing and unique we three are.
Very true.
And
thank you.
And beautiful.
That is more factual as well.
We might start using that as our theme. Jessica, what is America to you? More factual than any other show. I like that. All right, so also, as a young man from the Berkshires,
yes,
that's where you're originally from. You moved to Buffalo in about 1990, was it?
Well, to be more factual, I was born in the Berkshires, yes, and lived there till I was 11 or 12, and my family moved to the Saratoga Springs Capital District region. Then I went to college at the State University of New York at Fredonia, met musicians from Buffalo while there, and then moved to Buffalo to join a band with our mutual friend Eric Starr.
Wow.
And that was 1990.
Well, let me say,
and I've never left.
So far your life sounds like an ad from NPR, the Berkshires, all these. But with that, okay, so here you are, an American, grown up, not in New York City, not in Los Angeles, not in one of the quote-unquote cool places, and you discovered this absolute love for Philip Lynott and Thin Lizzy. How did that happen?
Oh, Philip, I still can't believe he's gone.
I know.
How did it happen? Back in the day, for fun, we would walk around and meet friends with our trusty album collections under our arm. And often we would trade albums the way that people would trade baseball cards and I was kind of peer pressured into making a trade. And I can't remember what I gave up, but it was something great. But this guy who was a drummer and a bit older than me my brother gave me this album. Here, I'll trade you this for whatever, All the World the Stage. And it was Thin Lizzy's Bad Reputation on vinyl. I looked at the cover and then I turned it over to the back, and there is a picture of Philip with Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson and Brian Downey sitting on a stoop. And I just looked at that man, and the charisma jumped from that before I'd even heard it. And then I'm like, oh, I'd heard the boys are back in town. Great. I will take this trade. I went home and listened to that record. And then I found out the backstory, who he was. I was fascinated that he was a black man, an Irishman, a poet, and a rocker who could be so sensitive and yet also so blazing, I fell in love with the guitar harmonies, the poetry, and the aura of this man. I'm of Irish descent. I have always romanticized that fact to the point where, we named my only son Declan.
That's nice.
And I was, so then that was it. I got Bad Reputation, then I bought Live and Dangerous, then I just bought them all and staged with them. Sadly, the end was only about 5-6 years after that with Thunder and Lightning. I bought all Phil's solo albums. and then he was gone. But I still listen to the band often, very often.
Let me ask you, Live and Dangerous was their biggest album, and it was one of the biggest selling albums, biggest selling live albums of all time. I think it knocked Saturday Night Fever off the charts in '78, right? Well, I like some of the stuff in that, but hey.
I love it. Don't get me wrong.
But it was great that it did it. And then there was a huge difference with that and Thunder and Lightning. You could hear the decline in his health, which I hate to say that, but you can hear that.
Well, yeah, and there was, again, we Bowie is a continuous theme with you and I, Derek. But I felt that with a tune like The Sun Goes Down, Phil was singing with an awareness of his demise, and it, God, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
But it made it so poignant and beautiful. But you could certainly hear it, and it's just, how many of the greats have we lost because of, heroin primarily? It's a scourge, obviously, and it was a waste. He was only 36, But yeah, you could certainly hear the decline. But I still thought his lyric writing and his melodies, it was like you could hear Van Morrison in it. You could hear early Springsteen in it. And I always, I don't know. I love James Joyce so much. I felt like this was like my Leopold Bloom tour. I could see the streets when he would sing a tune like Dublin. It's just so romantic to me, and he captured my imagination.
I'm from Dublin, as you know, and I'll say this to you: you obviously you're a journalist, and the fact that probably the greatest poet in folk, rock and roll, and music, Bob Dylan, used your words. That there is enough to say that you have truly got the Irish gift of the written and spoken word. And I'm not being funny. I'm not saying it in a you got the gift of the gab. I really mean it. Like Dylan, to use. I'm going to actually read that quote out if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
And then you can give us some background on it and your feeling when you heard it in concert. Okay, so hopefully I get this right. The poet laureate of rock and roll, the voice of the promise of the 60s counterculture, the guy who forced folk into bed with rock, who donned makeup in the 70s and disappeared into a haze of substance abuse, who emerged to find Jesus, who was written off as a has-been by the end of the 80s and who suddenly shifted gears and released some of the strongest music of his career beginning in the mid-90s. So that was the quote Dylan used, recorded prior to every concert?
Yeah, prefaced with, at the end, the announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Dylan." That wasn't mine. The rest was mine. It was, and well, go ahead. I'll let you frame this.
No,
so we can be mostly factual.
Yeah, well, I love that. That's great. I think we have to steal that. Then we can say, Dylan used the stuff, but we really use this line.
All right, I want royalties this time. Bob didn't give me any.
As soon as we make money, we'll send you something. We'll send you a "What Is America to You" cup when we get that made. But I would like to ask you where you were when you went to a concert and you heard it being spoken over. Whose voice was used on it?
So the same, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's the same stage announcer, and it was live, not every night. That guy was on the crew, and he would be on the microphone off stage. So, I was with my brother. We got gone to so many Dylan shows, so I knew it was going to be, ladies and gentlemen, Columbia recording artist Bob Dylan. That was it. So we're arriving at this show at the Erie County Fairgrounds outside Buffalo, and we're walking up, got our beer, we're psyched, This was 18 years ago last Sunday, actually, to the day. And all of a sudden, intro comes on, and then I'm hearing this, and my mouth just hung open. And then my brother looked at me. He's like, "He's using that's from your article." And I'm like, I just thought it would be a one-off because he was in Buffalo, and the article had come out a few days prior. So I was just blown away. If that was all it ever was, I loved it. I mean, that bit that he chose was tongue in cheek, like in the context of the greater article. I wasn't trying to be like, here's Bob's Wikipedia page. I was framing it. I'm like, it was a piece about how, look at all the different masks worn over the years. What do they add up to? What it added up to for me was that in 2002, he released Love and Theft, what I thought one of his greatest albums.
Great album. I love Po' Boy.
Beautiful. And he had a killer band, and they were on fire.
Yep.
So I was like, look, all of this is, look what was already here. And now later, you know, he, after Time Out of Mind, was in a late career renaissance, and I thought it was fantastic. But yeah, I was blown away, grateful. He's obviously an idol of anyone who cares about language and music.
Absolutely.
You know? And those are the things I care about the most.
Who else has been in that position that Dylan, again, the genius of the written word, has used a quote from him? It's an incredible privilege.
Well, it was. But then when it went on and on and on and on for a decade, I didn't know. You know, it was just wild, and it's nothing but an honor. I'm completely humbled, and as a result, I met a lot of great people through it.
Yeah.
Not Bob. Bob didn't. You know, Bob doesn't chill.
It's
backstage.
not too late.
That's not.
It's
Bob.
not too late.
You never know. I love.
Quick question on Dylan before we move on. What did you think of Shadows in the Night, the album, the Great American Songbook album? Myself and Eric argue a lot over this.
There are pieces I think are. First of all, doesn't matter what any of us think. He made those records for himself. Yes. He has a genuine love for that music, and I know he loves Frank. Who doesn't? I know you don't, Derek, but most of us
can't
do
stand
love
them.
Frank.
Can't stand them.
But he's not obviously a singer like that. I mean, if Tom Waits did an album of Sinatra tunes, it would be about the interpretation, the phrasing, the passion, or the weird, the weirdness, the angle you take on it, whatever. Some of it totally worked for me. A lot of it didn't. But who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, God bless you, Dylan. You owe us nothing. So I'm just happy to hear it.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it because, again, you said it, his phrasing and his passion. Like, you could hear him on, what was the song? That Lucky Old Son that Sinatra recorded in the late 40s. And if you play them, like, when you get a chance, play Sinatra's Lucky Old Son back to back with Dylan's Lucky Old Son. And it was like Dylan went, okay, wait, don't hit record yet. Let me listen again. And he copied Sinatra's phrasing now, as much as he can copy. But Dylan, like you mentioned Van Morrison and Philip Lynott, and let's throw in Ray Charles there. They all had that ability to phrase in the jazz way. They could phrase where they wanted. It was like they just threw a load of ice at a mountain of ice, and it slid down the way it wanted to. It was never wrong. It was always perfect. And Dylan has that. Not as good as Sinatra, but listening to them back to back, he was like, I'm going to do my best with my hero here. But that leads me to the next question, which, do you feel you hear honesty in a musician, particularly in a singer, when you first hear them? Does that inform your I guess your liking or disliking of an artist?
Do you mean, am I looking for honesty? Is that like a criteria for me?
Well, not even that you're looking for it, that you can't help but notice the absence or presence of it.
Yes. It's such a strange thing to define honesty or authenticity, or are they the same thing? We get back to Bowie again.
I was just thinking.
I don't think he was always being honest from an autobiographical sense. I think that he was inhabiting a character the way a novelist can.
Yep.
And not every character is you. Not every character do you actually love, of even your own invention. So is it honesty? If I'm listening to a Springsteen album, I am definitely immediately moved by the combination of honesty and blazing passion. Like, I will die for what I'm trying to do here. I would die for it. I love that.
Right.
That whole rock and roll has saved my life, and it is my religion, and it will elevate the human condition. That from him. From other artists, I might be looking for something that can take me somewhere else, that isn't like honest authenticism, rootsy music. I love all music, and it isn't always the honesty. Now, the purity of intention, yes. Is that the same as honesty? I'm not sure.
Well, that's intention is the key. And you mentioned Bowie, and I know when people listen to these videos, they'll think that all I love is Bowie and Sinatra. But I think that too.
That'd be okay.
But Bowie, when I was just talking to my friend Mick McDonald the other night about Bowie's affectations. It's like ground control to Major Tom, right? And then later on, he's like Young Americans. He's doing the Elvis thing and Golden Years. What? And he was all over the place, but he was being honest in his affectations. He wasn't. He said, now I'm going to wear the Cockney hat. I'm going to do Anthony Newley. Now I'm going to do Elvis. Now I'm going to do Little Richard. Like his early stuff, the King Bees and the Lower Third. Yeah. He was doing Little Richard and all the American stuff. But he was honest, if this makes sense, in his, what's the word you would use? Can't think of the word. Not honest in his dishonesty, but honest in his artifice. I'm not using the right word.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Honest in his artifice. Yeah. I mean, he was never, he's not Marvin Gaye, but you could hear a Marvin Gaye influence sometimes. You could hear the influence of Kraftwerk, whatever it was, The idea was to create art.
Yep.
And that's really my criteria. It really is that. Honesty can be the window through which you crawl, but some kind of purity of intention and respect for the artistic process. I always want to hear that. Whether it's three-chord folk music or Close to the Edge or whatever, or D'Angelo or a hip-hop record, I always want that.
Well, I felt that with, not to go off on a tangent, but I felt that with the Fleet Foxes.
Oh, that's all we do. Our whole thing is...
Yeah, but my co-producer partner, the better-looking half of our partnership will kill me if I go on for 10 hours. But Fleet Foxes, there was that whole folk revival that came out there, in the early mid-2000s and kind of went on, and you had I can't remember your names of the band, so I don't care. But the Fleet Foxes and Robin Pecknold, he was the real deal. He was the guy that grew the beard because why do I shave? I'm going to be meeting bears and I'm going to be chopping wood. The other guys were like, what do we wear to look authentic? And I get into a lot of trouble with people when they ask me. They'll say, what do you think of Lady Gaga? And I'll start by going, nah, not my thing. And then they go, but she's huge. Oh, well, what are we talking about here? Like they'd say she makes a load of money. Oh, that's great. Are we talking commerce or art? Because art doesn't even know commerce exists, and commerce doesn't give a shit about art. So let's talk about one or the other. When I'm talking about Bowie or Lady Gaga or any art, I'm talking about the art, nothing to do with money. But I think they were an example, the Fleet Foxes, of absolute purity and honesty, music for music.
I couldn't agree more, and I loved that. And I didn't love everyone from that movement, And for me, the criteria on that isn't honesty so much as if you're playing a banjo, it better not be 6-string banjo tuned like a guitar that you play. That was the tell for me. I'm like, you don't play banjo. You play guitar, but you're putting on a banjo and a lumberjack shirt as not the cool kind of affectation, as a pose. Yep. So
I'm with you.
Give him the hook. Give him the hook. You're out of
Jeff,
here.
that's without even realizing it, we're actually there talking about authenticity, which is honesty. If you're not honest, you can't be authentic. And that leads me into really briefly, because we've talked a lot about Bowie, but this is a question I wanted to ask you. David Bowie's use of theatrics to his career versus the now given use of theatrics in all music. It's like they have to have a gimmick. They have to have, whether it's a suit with spikes on it or meat hanging off it or whatever. What do you think the difference was with Bowie using theatrics versus a lot of the modern artists?
Well, I don't really want to diss Lady Gaga per se at all. I actually have a lot of respect for her. Not a whole bunch of love for her music, but respect for her artistry. And Tony Bennett loves her, and he's not a
No.
fool. At any rate, Bowie studied with right. Bowie studied dance, movement, theatricality. This is different than just straight shock value in the way that Ziggy Stardust was different from Kiss. I mean, it wasn't shock and awe. It was part of the creativity and a way to get the music across. Excuse me. And pardon me. I don't know if you're familiar with the band The Flaming Lips.
Wayne, I can't remember the singer's name, the gray hair.
Coyne.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to see them, it is an amazing show. But you realize that the show is coming from relatively inexpensive props and the way that they're using them and their own creativity, this sort of art school creativity that I find in the Lips. It was clear with Bowie, in my opinion, all along. What's one of the greatest images of Bowie? For me, it's certainly the white shirt with the black vest and the single white light underneath him, the thin white dude. That isn't that's not over the top. It's just brilliant. It's subtle and brilliant the way that a black and white film can be. But like Bowie, the Lips, Kate Bush, I thought understood this very well. Peter Gabriel, some of the greats. So for me, there is a difference there. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think you did.
Factual?
But when you said about the Thin White Duke, and that was the Isola tour, he was channeling that kind of Berlin, what's it, Fassbinder kind of movie look. And it wasn't like, oh, I'll wear a white shirt and a vest and put cigarettes in my pocket and stand real cool. That's what would make me look cool. This was all coming together from books he'd read, movies he saw, art he'd went to see, his time around Berlin and places like that, and he brought it together, and he ended up at that. It wasn't like, oh, that looks cool, that looks cool, that looks cool, and I'll stand like this. That's the difference for me.
That is definitely the difference. And just as he made music, through assembling so many different influences and being astute and open-minded, so the theatrical elements of the show were the same way. It was expression. It wasn't, let's put this on after the fact. It all came from the same fount,
Yeah. I had said before that, and I try to remember it. To me, someone like Bowie, Kate Bush, Peter Gabriel, Flaming Lips, the theatrics are used to enhance their art that's already there. And
not to cover it up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, not to cover it up, which I see too many artists doing, and a lot of them, really quickly, when I saw the Bowie tribute after he died on the Grammys, I think it was, and Lady Gaga came out, and it sounds like I'm a Lady Gaga hater. I just don't get the hype about her.
I did hate that. I did hate that. That broke my heart.
Me too, Jeff. I was at a gig, and they had it on over the stage, with the volume turned down. And I always say, show me somebody singing or dancing with the volume turned down, and I'll tell you whether they're any good or not. Now, I'm sure anybody who's listening to this video is going to say, bullshit. I guarantee you. I can tell. And I'm like, what? She looks like a praying mantis having a seizure. It was insane. It's like, what are you doing there? It drove, and as a Bowie fan, and Bowie just died, I'm like, that was the ultimate disrespect, in my opinion. It was ghoulish and grave robbing. We'll never get Lady Gaga on the show now.
No, I don't think she'll be returning your call.
God damn it.
Again, I do respect her, but that was horrible. That was not right. And as a real fan, that broke my heart.
All right, I think we have to come soon to the end, but not
there
because...
is no end.
What was the quote again? Mostly true?
Mostly factual.
Mostly factual. See, that's the difference. I remember that as mostly true, but mostly factual is better. It flows better.
Alternative facts.
Alternative facts. I had asked you most of the questions, and why... I have a question written down here, and I can't understand my own question. And what your passion? I think we've already covered most of them. Do you remember? I think we said that we would possibly do a few questions from the Proust questionnaire.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
So
you certainly can.
I mean,
I'm not going to be that witty.
well, what we try to do is make them as snappy as possible. So if I respond to you, tell me, shut up and fucking move on. Okay, straight off the top. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Peacefulness, serenity, my family, and music in one place.
Excellent. What is your greatest achievement besides being on our show?
Okay, my second greatest achievement then will be being a father. That's the thing I'm most proud of.
That's a great Declan, right?
Declan.
It's a great name. What is your greatest extravagance?
You're looking at it. Guitars, recording equipment, records.
Excellent.
Concert tickets back in a different lifetime.
So music. What is your current state of mind?
I am walking a tightrope between anxiety and hopefulness.
You stole my current state of mind.
I'm far from alone in that one.
Jessica said it's hers as well. What's going on? Okay, what do you consider the most overrated virtue? It's a tough one, I know.
Economic acumen.
Oh, wow, I like
the
that.
ability to make money. I think that got us into a lot of trouble, and I'll leave it at that.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
I say awesome way too much.
Jessica, I
to
think...
the point where it's no longer awesome, and it becomes less than awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I heard that. A Canadian was the first person I heard that from years ago in Ireland. When we were doing Live and Dangerous. Okay, shut up, Derek. Back on track. What? I just spoke in the third person. I need to be jailed. What do you most value in your friends, Jeff?
Compassion, empathy, kindness, and willingness to buy me a pint once in a while.
You know what? If we come to Buffalo, we'll buy you a pint.
Oh, it's on. It's on.
Second last question. Which historical figure do you most identify with? Or if a fictional character? Doesn't matter. Either.
Wow. Well, I mean, Siddhartha in the Herman Hesse, that inspired me. I don't know if I identify with it as so much. Martin Luther King, Paul McCartney, Marvin Gaye, Barack Obama. These people were all hugely inspiring to me.
Yeah.
But Neil Peart was a big one. I say if you put all that together, it's close to what I aspire to.
Probably put all those people together, you probably got Buddha.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch of Buddhas around here.
You know, it's
a fountain in the backyard, and that does help. And not to be all new age about it, but I need to shut out and tune in to things that are a little bit more essential and timeless.
Yeah, but
and not so temporal and involved with my phone.
Right, but it's a tough time right now for everybody and anybody under the age of 90, 85. We didn't see the Great Depression. We didn't see World War II. We don't know much about the effects of Vietnam, but that wasn't a world event like the way this is. Nobody in my peer group, they just haven't seen this. We don't know how to deal with this. It's like being a parent. Like 20 years later, you go, "Oh, that's how you do it." There's no booklet with this shit,
There isn't. Nobody told me there'd be days.
There you go. Okay, there's a million things I could say. I have one last question before we go, and that is, Jeff Miers, what is America to you?
It's a land of hope and dreams. It's an idea that floats a little bit out of reach. Possibility that is being betrayed, but there is still hope. It's still possible that we can do better that tomorrow will be better than today, and that will bring everyone along with us, not a select few.
Excellent answer. And I'll say this to you and to anybody listening. This is why this man has been, his words have been used by Bob Dylan, and why he was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, because that was an extemporaneous answer and it was pure poetry. The Irish is strong in you.
That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me. My grandmother would be so pleased.
Well, that's great, Jeff. Listen, I'm sad to say that we gotta say good afternoon to you.
This is so fun. Let's do it again, even if it's not on camera.
Absolutely. When you're in New York again.
It's nice to meet you, Jessica.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
I'll see you down there, or come up here after all this madness has subsided.
Absolutely. Jeff Miers, thank you so much.
Be well.
Have a great day. Thank you. Anyway, that was Jeff Miers, music critic at the Buffalo News. Look him up. He's written article after article after article. In case I forget, I want to say happy anniversary to my wife, because today when we recorded the show, don't even have to say the date, but the day we recorded the show was 15 years since we were married. But it's also to my 3 kids, Michael, Kelsey and Nikki.
Congratulations, Derek.
We made it. But you know what? The reason why we're still together, I married a very honest, beautiful-hearted, kind, giving woman, and she knows that. So, before we say goodbye, don't forget, if you haven't already hit the like button, please do. Also, please subscribe to What Is America to You. From me, Derek Dempsey in New York, and from the wonderful Renaissance woman behind the camera, who's still on the wrong side of the camera, we'll eventually straighten it up, Jessica Clee, making it all happen. From us here at What Is America to You, goodbye for now.
Driving along, minding my own business, heading east through the Kentucky rain. There on the radio, Johnny Cash was singing. I hurt myself just to see if I still feel pain.